Now, for as long as I can possibly remember, I've always been a huge fan of fantasy, even before I started watching anime. But because of the isekai genre, which is bland and repetitive, I haven't been watching fantasy in these last couple of years. But I can still always appreciate a good fantasy. And so, in the previous week, I started reading this manga called Shangri-La Frontier. But let's call it SLF for the sake of this video. Now, when I started reading SLF, I was half expecting it to be bland and, repetitive like the isekai genre. But damn was I wrong. Now, the premise is this. A young gamer boy who immerses himself in these virtual reality games. And now, seeing this for the first time, I immediately remembered SAO, which, if you know, didn't end so well. But again, damn was I surprised, because the manga was fantastic as hell. I mean, it had all the right ideas and executed them all perfectly. And I basically read everything in like a week, which is like almost 200 chapters. Now, halfway through reading it, I saw that it actually got an anime, which I didn't think much of it. But after I finished reading the manga, I thought I had sink my teeth into the anime. And again, damn was I surprised, because the anime is so good on so many levels, like you wouldn't even believe it. Like, it is damn near a masterpiece. I've never done this in my videos, but this show gets a 9 out of 10. And I would definitely recommend it to anyone who likes fantasy like that. I can even go as far as to say that this is the best fantasy anime in all of 2024. Like, prove me wrong. First of all, the show has a very beautiful world building. Now, most, if not everything you see is fresh and unique. I mean, it's not the same old goblins and weak kobolds. I mean, sure, they are there. The goblins and the rabbits are practically paperweights, and they're usually the first monsters the main character faces. And while it's true in SLF as well, but the unique twist is that they're anything but easy. And if not for the main character, you get a sense that others would definitely struggle. And even the father, I mean, the boss of the rabbits is this Yakuza-like gang member who's maybe a gang member, but he's still a rabbit, telling from how many kills this guy has. And the twist the show gives ranges from a simple Lich King being like female, which I know is a small twist, but it still does wonders for the overall feel of the show, to the mechanical ghost samurai. Everything has a nice unique twist, and that's first, the world feels lived in. I probably won't articulate this properly, but from the NPCs to the locations and the information given, everything feels like it exists on its own. And to borrow a gaming terminology, and no, the irony is not lost upon me, but the world has lore. It has lore. That's the best way I can describe it. Now, second of all, the execution of the world. When it comes to writing, execution is everything, and the show does this perfectly. The world is left in the background for you to pick up on, and it's never, if ever, overly explained to you like they do in Blood of Zeus. I mean, you aren't spoon-fed. You get to pick up on for yourself. And last but not least, the show has a variety of locations they switch between. And although it doesn't spend as much time in one location, but it doesn't necessarily speed run through all of them, which I can argue that it's not actually a bad thing, and it's in fact, refreshing. So the world building is a straight 10 out of 10, no questions. But this brings me neatly into the plot. Now, the plot of the show itself isn't anything to write home about. I mean, boy goes to school, comes back home, and has adventures on his games. It's nothing to write home about. But the meat of the show is the games themselves, especially SLF, which is named after the show, or vice versa. Anyway, while the plot of the show is presented and seems like mindless fun, going from one adventure to another without any bigger plot, that couldn't be any further from the truth. And I'm sure most people can tell, but there's obviously a bigger story to be had. But again, the devil is in the detail, because they don't outright tell you this. From the occasional anachronical things and words, to the phrasing of a sentence, you can easily tell that there's a history and/or an overarching plot, which, although it's not needed in a non-serious, quote-unquote mindless anime, it is still appreciated. Now, moving on. While no one goes into an anime expecting good dialogue, and most of them are in fact bad, SLF by far is one of the better ones. While it's not the best and arguably has some issues, but I find it appropriate for the tone the show has. First of all, the show doesn't take itself seriously, which makes the occasional info dump bearable, and in fact, I'd say it's one of the only times an info dump is arguably accepted. I mean, the only time I'd say the dialogue falls into your typical anime mode is when the three main characters interact with each other, which just makes it unbearably cartoonish. Which now brings me to my next topic, the characters. Now, SLF has a great character cast, from the different members in the main character's family, to the NPCs and the side characters. And now again, even though not much is expected from the NPCs since they weren't meant to be characters, the show still goes out of its way to make them at least 2D, if not 3D. And that's just fantastic as hell. While I don't have any problems with the side characters, there is just one thing I just gotta talk about. Now, in the manga, the girl that is madly in love with the main character just pissed me off. I mean, I didn't like her one bit. The relationship she had with the main character was tropey at best, and I would prefer Emil over her. But the anime was so good at her characterization that I just actually found myself rooting for her. Well, I can argue that all there is to her character is her just loving the main character, and her portrayal took me back to when I was also in love. But still, as clever as the show is, this is by far the only time it relies on cheap ass misunderstanding, and it definitely comes across as forced. And when the main character, who is level headed and has faced scary monsters, has this relationship that is partially built on misunderstanding and fear, I mean, the possibility of them getting together is, well, pretty high. But until then, any effort she makes is in vain, and I can't bring myself to take it seriously. And finally, I say the best for last, the main character. This is a nice small detail, but the show cleverly explores the world through him, and because of his personality, they're able to navigate it pretty well. Like, for example, like the first time he logs into a game, there's this huge ass info dump that would otherwise drag on the screen time and just feel boring. But he, in his character, skips the tutorial, which again I find out to be sensational. Now, as for the said main character, while Sanruku is easy to understand, and you'll quickly come to love him, he does have this annoying trait of him doubting himself and then pumping himself up over and over and over and over again. And while someone can argue that the theme of the show is, motivation, following the current trend, it is annoying, and especially coupled with the annoying, and I mean annoying, internal monologue. And it shouldn't come as a surprise since, it's an anime, but still, it's annoying. But you know what? For the first time, I actually don't hate it. I mean, for starters, when this man hypes himself up, I also got hyped up as well. And because of that, I'll give this show a 9 out of 10 because it's almost a masterpiece. And this is why I think, well, no, I know to be so, but this show is 100%, if not 10,000% better than SAO. And it's what SAO needs to strive to be. I might prefer this than that. Anyways, it's late and I'm tired, so do with that with what you want.